Eyes in the cornfield. Have you ever looked out your window at night and seen something staring back? Not an animal, not a person, but something that shouldn't exist. Hi everyone. My name's Alex and I grew up in a dusty little town in the Midwest called Willow Creek. The kind of place where cornfields stretch forever, and the biggest excitement is Friday night football. I was 17 back then, just trying to survive high school. My folks split when I was 12, so it was mostly me and my mom in our old farmhouse on the edge of town. She worked double shifts at the diner, leaving me alone a lot. I didn't mind at first. It gave me time to tinker with my truck, play video games, or sneak smokes out back. But looking back, that loneliness was the first crack. It made me restless and angry sometimes. I'd drive around at night, blasting music, pretending I was invincible, like nothing could touch me. It started small, subtle. One evening in late fall, the air crisp and biting, I was out in the garage fixing up my beat-up Ford. The sun had dipped low, painting everything orange, then gray. I wiped grease from my hands, feeling that familiar ache in my shoulders from hunching over the engine. That's when I heard it. A soft rustle in the cornfield behind the house. Not wind. There was none. Just movement. I glanced up, squinting into the stalks. Nothing. Probably a deer, I thought. But my skin prickled, like static electricity crawling up my arms. I shook it off, grabbed my tools and headed inside. The house felt emptier than usual. Mom was at work, the kitchen clock ticking too loud. I nuked some leftovers, sat at the table, and scrolled my phone. News popped up. Local stuff. Some old guy from a nearby farm had gone missing a week back. Cops said foul play, but no leads. I skimmed it, not caring much. People vanished sometimes in these parts. Drifters, accidents. Life moved on. That night, I couldn't sleep. The bed creaked under me, sheets tangled from tossing. Around 2 a.m., I gave up and stared at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Creaks in the walls, like old bones shifting. Then, a knock. Slow. Deliberate. 1, 2, 3, from downstairs. My heart stuttered. I sat up, ears straining. Nothing. Must have been the pipes, I told myself. But the air turned heavy, thick with that wet, musty smell, like earth after rain, mixed with something metallic. Blood? No, couldn't be. I lay back down, forcing my eyes shut. Sleep came eventually, fitful and dreamless. The next day dragged. School was the usual blur. Classes, cafeteria chatter, avoiding the jocks who thought they owned the halls. My girlfriend, Sarah, texted me during lunch. We'd been together a few months, but things were rocky. She was always pushing for more commitment, and I pushed back. Meet after school? Her message said. I replied yay, but my mind wandered to that knock. After the bell, we met at my truck in the parking lot. She hopped in, her perfume cutting through the stale air, sweet like vanilla. We drove out to the old quarry, a spot kids used for parking. The sun filtered through dying leaves, casting long shadows. We talked, laughed a bit, but as dusk fell, I felt it again. That prickle. Sarah noticed. You okay? You seem off? I shrugged. Just tired. We kissed, her lips warm against the growing chill. But out the window in the fading light I swore I saw movement. A shape darting between trees. Tall, hunched, gone before I could focus. We headed back as night swallowed the road. Headlights cut through the dark, illuminating twists of fog rising from the fields. Sarah chattered about prom plans, but I tuned out. My grip tightened on the wheel. Then, up ahead, eyes, red, glowing like embers, floating in the ditch. I slammed the brakes. Tires screeched. Sarah yelped. "What the hell, Alex?" The truck skidded to a halt. I stared out, heart hammering. Nothing there now. Just empty road. "Thought I saw a deer," I muttered. She rolled her eyes, but her hand trembled on my arm. Dropping her off, I watched her house lights flick on, safe and warm. Driving home alone, the radio static buzzed in my ears. That smell again, earthy, metallic, seeped into the cab. I cracked the window, cold air rushing in. It helped. A little. Home felt wrong that night. The porch light flickered as I pulled up, bulb buzzing like angry bees. Inside, the house was silent. Too silent. I locked the door, double-checked the windows. Upstairs in my room, I collapsed on the bed. Exhaustion hit hard, but sleep brought dreams. Twisted ones. I was in the cornfield, running. Something chased me, horns curving from a pale skull, skin stretched tight over bones. Its eyes burned red, not angry, hungry. I woke gasping, sweat soaking my shirt. The clock read 3:33 a.m., and there it was, knocking. 6 times now. From my window. Slow. Methodical. I froze, blankets clutched tight. The glass fogged from my breath. Outside, a shadow. Horned. Eyes piercing the dark. I blinked. It vanished. But the window cracked. A thin line spider-webbing across the pane. Like something had pressed too hard. Morning came gray and heavy. I skipped school. Told Mom I was sick. She fussed a bit before leaving for her shift, her eyes worried. Alone, I paced the house. That news article nagged at me. The missing guy, Mr. Harlan, owned a feed store downtown. Rumors said he'd been in debt, maybe skipped town. But cops found his truck abandoned, keys in the ignition. No blood, no struggle. Just gone. I searched online, digging deeper. Old forums popped up, local ghost stories. Willow Creek, built on bad land, they said. Native burial grounds covered up in the 1800s. Folks whispered about shadows that followed you. Knocks in the night. Creatures guarding secrets. Bullshit, I thought. But my hands shook as I read. Sarah called around noon. "You sound weird. What's going on?" I hesitated, then spilled a little. The knocks, the eyes. She laughed at first. "You're messing with me." But her voice cracked. "Come over later. We can talk." I agreed. Anything to not be alone. Afternoon blurred into evening. I drove to her place, the sky bruising purple. Her house was on the outskirts, similar to mine, fields all around. We sat on her porch, wrapped in a blanket. Crickets chirped, a normal sound. Comforting. She leaned into me. "Maybe it's stress. From your parents in school?" I nodded, but doubt gnawed. As stars pricked the sky, the wind picked up, carrying that smell again. Stronger. Like dirt and decay. Sarah wrinkled her nose. "What's that?" Before I could answer, a rustle. From the field. We both froze. Eyes appeared. Red. Glowing. Closer this time. The shape emerged, pale, hairless, horns twisting like roots. It didn't walk. It glided. Unnatural. Sarah gasped. Alex, what is that? I grabbed her hand. Inside. Now. We bolted through the door, slamming it shut. Her parents were out. Date night. The house trembled as something scratched at the wood. Slow drags like nails on chalkboard. We backed into the living room, lights flickering. The air grew cold, frost blooming on windows. "This isn't real," Sarah whispered. But it was. The knocks started. On every window. One after another. 6 each time. The creature's face pressed against the glass. Eyes boring in, mouth a black slit. No teeth. Just void. I felt it then. Not just fear. Insignificance. Like we were ants under a boot. And this thing, it came from somewhere vast. Beyond stars, beyond graves. It knew secrets buried deep. About the land. About us. We huddled in the corner, praying under our breath. Sarah sobbed quietly. The pressure built, chest tight, shoulders aching like weights pinned us. The room darkened, shadows lengthening, twisting into shapes. Horned. Eyed. They whispered now. Faint at first. Names. Mr. Harlan's. Others I'd half heard in town legends. Missing people over decades. Burned alive, some said. Trapped in flames to hide sins. My mind reeled. Flashes hit me. Not memories, but visions. Teens long ago binding an old man, dousing his wagon in oil. Lighting it. For land. For greed. Buried under our town. The creature. Guardian. Avenger. Or something older. Feeding on the rot. The front door rattled. Buckled. We ran upstairs to her room, barricading with a dresser. Scratches followed. Up the stairs. Thumps. The air choked us. Smoke now. Acrid and burning. No fire, but the smell, like charred flesh. Sarah clutched my arm. We have to get out. But where? The window cracked under invisible force. Glass shards tinkled. Red eyes peered in. I shoved the dresser aside, yanked her toward the hall. Downstairs, the door hung open. Darkness poured in. We sprinted for my truck, feet pounding gravel. The engine roared to life. Tires spun, kicking dust. In the rear view, it watched. Not chasing, just waiting. We drove aimless, hearts racing. Sarah called the cops from her phone, babbling about an intruder. They came, searched, found nothing. No footprints. No damage except the cracked windows. Kids playing pranks, they said. But we knew. That night, we crashed at a motel on the highway. Exhaustion claimed us, but dreams twisted worse. I saw it clear. The creature wasn't just haunting. It was revealing. The town built on bones, not just native ones. Murders covered up. Families like mine, descendants of those killers. My great-grandpa involved? The visions showed flames, screams. Teens back then laughing as they burned evidence. Echoes in us now. Days blurred. We avoided home. School whispers grew. Another disappearance. A kid from our class, last seen near the fields. Sarah and I fought. She wanted to leave town. I couldn't. It pulled me. One night, alone in the motel while she grabbed food, the knocks came. On the mirror. 6. I stared at my reflection. Eyes reddening. Horns budding from my skull. No illusion. But the dread swelled. Cosmic. We were specks in a vast, uncaring void. This thing, elder, eternal, used our guilt, our flaws, to unravel us. Loneliness fed it. Anger nourished. The twist hit like a gut punch. Sarah confessed, tears streaming. I knew about Harlan. What? She trembled. My cousin, he bragged. Him and some friends trapped the old man in his truck, burned him, for money in his safe. Her eyes widened. I didn't stop them. I was scared. The room spun. Me? Flashes returned. Me, driving that night. Seeing eyes. But earlier, I'd passed Harlan's farm. Heard shouts. Ignored. Drove on. Complicit. The creature wasn't hunting random. It sought echoes of the past. In us. Teens repeating sins. We fled town that dawn. Drove far, never looking back. But it follows. Shadows in mirrors. Knocks at odd hours. Red eyes in dreams. The universe hides horrors we can't comprehend. They wait in the cracks of our world, feeding on our small, broken lives. If you hear knocks at night, don't answer. And if you see red eyes, run.
In between worlds. Have you ever wondered, what if the dead don't actually leave when their bodies stop breathing? What if they're just waiting, caught between one heartbeat and the next? For someone desperate enough to see them, I wish I'd never found out. My name is Sarah, and 6 months ago, I made a discovery that cost me everything I thought I knew about life and death. I was documenting the supernatural, but I was really just opening a door that should have stayed locked forever. It started normal enough. Rain-soaked streets in Portland, coffee shops on every corner, the kind of life where nothing extraordinary ever happens. I was working as a freelance videographer, mostly at weddings and corporate events, the sort of gigs that pay the bills but leave your soul feeling empty. But I had this obsession. Ever since my grandmother passed when I was 12, I had been fascinated by stories of souls leaving the body. She told me once, gripping my small hand with her papery fingers, that death wasn't the end. That sometimes, if you looked hard enough, you could catch glimpses of what comes after. I started small, documenting supposed ghost sightings, interviewing people who claimed to see spirits. Most of it was garbage. Tricks of light, wishful thinking, grief playing with memory. But then I found Dr. Marcus Webb's research. Dr. Webb was a former medical examiner who turned into a paranormal investigator. Silver-haired, soft-spoken, with those intense blue eyes that seemed to see right through you. His YouTube channel, Beyond the Veil, had thousands of subscribers, all of them drawn to his calm, scientific approach to the supernatural. Death isn't an instant process, he explained in one video, leaning forward in his leather chair. The soul, it takes time to detach, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours. And in that window, if you know how to look, you can capture it on film. He showed footage. Hospitals, accident scenes, deathbeds. Grainy, low-resolution clips of what looked like mist, smoke, translucent figures rising from still bodies. My heart pounded as I watched. This was it. This was proof. I reached out to Dr. Webb through his website. Within a day, he'd responded, eager to meet someone with the sensitivity to perceive what others miss. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, rain streaking the windows. The smell of espresso was thick in the air. "Sarah," he said, studying my face with those piercing eyes. "I can tell. You've lost someone close to you. They departed. They call to people like us. They want to be seen." His words hit like ice water in my veins. How could he know about grandmother? About the dreams where she stood at the foot of my bed, trying to tell me something I could never quite hear. Dr. Webb offered to train me. "You have potential," he said, sliding a business card across the table. "But you need the right equipment, the right techniques. The soul operates on frequencies most cameras can't detect." I should have walked away, should have seen the manipulation for what it was. But grief makes you stupid. and I was drowning in questions that had haunted me for 15 years. The training started at his home studio, a converted basement filled with monitors, cameras, and infrared equipment. The walls were lined with photographs, hundreds of them. Accident scenes, hospital rooms, morgues. In each one, Dr. Webb had circled areas with red marker, pointing out soul manifestations that looked like dust motes to me. "You're not seeing with the right eyes yet," he'd say, adjusting the camera settings. The spiritual realm exists just outside normal perception, but with practice, with dedication, you'll learn to bridge that gap. He taught me about emotional resonance zones, places where traumatic death had occurred. Hospitals, intersections, anywhere life ended suddenly. The soul gets confused, he explained. It lingers, trying to process what happened. That's when it's most visible. I started spending nights at Seattle General Hospital with Dr. Webb's special camera equipment. Infrared sensors, electromagnetic field detectors, cameras modified to capture spectral frequencies. The night shift nurses knew me, thought I was another grief counselor or researcher. They didn't ask questions. That's where I first saw it. 3:17 a.m., ICU ward. An elderly man had just passed. Heart attack, quick and quiet. His family hadn't arrived yet. As the nurses disconnected the machines, I saw something rise from his body. Faint, translucent, but unmistakably human-shaped. My hands shook as I reviewed the footage later. There it was, clear as anything. A white, misty figure slowly separating from the corpse, hovering for a moment before dissolving into nothing. Dr. Webb was ecstatic when I showed him. "Perfect capture, Sarah. You're developing the gift." He posted it on his channel with my permission. Within days, it had thousands of views. Comments poured in. People sharing their own experiences, thanking us for proof of life after death. I was hooked. I started haunting accident scenes, following police scanners, arriving at hospitals before families even knew their loved ones were gone. My apartment became a shrine to death, walls covered with photographs, hours of footage stored on hard drives. I barely ate, rarely slept. Every moment was consumed by the hunt for more evidence. The footage got clearer, more detailed. I documented what looked like souls rising from car crash victims, translucent figures wandering confused through hospital corridors, dark shapes fleeing crime scenes. Dr. Webb praised each new capture, encouraging me to go further, dig deeper. "You're special, Sarah," he'd say, reviewing my latest recordings. "Most people can't handle this level of spiritual exposure, but you're meant for this work." But something was wrong. The more footage I captured, the more I began to notice patterns. The souls I was filming, they all looked similar. Same general shape, same translucent quality. And they seemed to be aware of the camera, turning toward me with eyeless faces before disappearing. Worse, I started seeing them when I wasn't filming. Walking home late at night, shadows would move in my peripheral vision. My apartment felt watched, oppressive. The temperature would drop suddenly, my breath coming out in visible puffs despite the heater running. I tried pulling back, taking a break from the documentation. But Dr. Webb wouldn't let me. "This is a crucial phase of your development," he insisted during one of our meetings. "The spirits are trying to communicate. You can't abandon them now." He gave me new equipment, more sensitive cameras, something he called a soul anchor, a small device that supposedly made spirits more visible. "Just wear it when you're filming," he said. "It'll enhance your natural abilities." The device looked innocent enough. A small pendant on a silver chain, warm to the touch. I wore it that night to Swedish Medical Center, where a multi-car accident had brought in several critical cases. That's when everything changed. In the trauma bay, a young woman, maybe 25, lay unconscious on the operating table. The doctors worked frantically, but I could see it in their faces. She wasn't going to make it. I positioned my camera, waiting for the moment of departure. When the heart monitor flatlined, what rose from her body wasn't the usual misty figure. It was her. Exactly her. Face, hair, clothes, all translucent but perfectly detailed. She sat up on the table, looked around in confusion, then stared directly at me. Her mouth moved, forming words I couldn't hear. But I could read her lips. Help me. The camera captured everything. When I reviewed the footage later, my blood went cold. The woman on the table, she looked exactly like someone I'd filmed weeks earlier at a different hospital. Same face, same expression of confusion and terror. I went back through my archives, comparing footage. Hospital after hospital, accident after accident, the same faces kept appearing. Different bodies on the tables, but the same souls rising from them. All of them looking at me with that same pleading expression. That's when I realized the horrible truth. These weren't souls departing their bodies. They were souls being pulled into them. And somehow, through my filming, I was the one doing the pulling. Dr. Webb's training sessions took on a sinister quality when I looked back. The emotional resonance he'd taught me to seek out, the special equipment, the pendant around my neck. None of it was about documenting the supernatural. It was about harvesting it. I confronted him at his studio, hands shaking as I showed him the comparison footage. These are the same people, Dr. Webb, the same souls. What are you doing to them? His gentle mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and hungry underneath. Doing to them? He laughed, that soft, comforting chuckle I'd grown to trust. Sarah, you still don't understand, do you? He turned to his wall of photographs, gesturing at the hundreds of soul captures he'd collected over the years. Death is a transition, not an ending, but some souls, they get lost in the journey, confused, frightened. They need guidance. Guidance into other people's bodies? Bodies that are dying anyway. His voice took on that hypnotic quality I'd heard in his videos. Bodies that would be empty vessels without intervention. We're giving lost souls a second chance at life. The pendant around my neck suddenly felt burning hot. I clawed at the chain, trying to remove it, but it wouldn't budge. Dr. Webb smiled. That anchor, it doesn't just help you see them, Sarah. It helps you call them. Every person you filmed, their soul becomes bound to yours, available for redistribution. The basement walls seemed to close in around me. All those photographs, all those soul manifestations. They weren't documentation. They were a catalog, a menu of available spirits for some twisted form of reincarnation. The families think their loved ones are at peace, Dr. Webb continued, circling me slowly. But the souls are just stored, waiting in the space between life and death. And when the right host becomes available, I ran, tore up the basement stairs, through his house, out into the rain-soaked night. But I could feel them following me. Not Dr. Webb, but the souls. All the souls I'd captured, bound to me by that cursed pendant. They whispered in my ears as I drove home, translucent faces pressing against my windows. The young woman from the trauma bay, the elderly man from the ICU, dozens of others I documented over the months. All of them were trying to communicate something I couldn't understand. At home, I tried everything to remove the pendant. Bolt cutters, hammers, even fire. Nothing worked. The chain seemed fused to my skin, the metal warm and pulsing like a heartbeat. That's when I noticed my reflection in the bathroom mirror. It wasn't just my face looking back. There were others, layered behind my features like double-exposed photographs. The souls I'd captured, pressing against the boundary between life and death. And they were getting stronger. My hands moved without my permission, typing messages I didn't want to send. My voice spoke words I didn't choose. At night, I'd wake to find myself standing in strange locations, parks, intersections, hospitals, with no memory of how I'd gotten there. Dr. Webb called constantly, his voice honey-sweet and concerned. The integration process can be overwhelming at first, he'd say. But soon, you'll understand the gift you've been given, the gift you're giving them. I realized he wasn't just harvesting souls for other people's dying bodies. He was collecting them in me, using me as a living repository for the lost dead. Every person I'd filmed, their essence was now part of me, crowding my consciousness, fighting for control. The worst part, I could feel their memories, their final moments. The car crash victim remembered the impact. The hospital patient recalled the suffocating panic of their heart attack. All of it flooding through my brain like poison. I tried destroying the equipment, burning the footage, but it was too late. The connection was permanent. The souls were bound to me now, and through me, to Dr. Webb's network of collectors around the country, because that's what I learned in my final conversation with him. I wasn't his first student. There were others, dozens of them, all wearing similar pendants, all documenting supernatural phenomena while actually harvesting souls for some larger purpose. You see, Sarah, he explained during our last phone call, death creates such waste. All those conscious minds just disappearing. But with the right techniques, the right equipment, we can preserve them, store them, and when suitable hosts present themselves, the line went dead. But I understood. Somewhere out there, people were dying. And instead of finding peace, their souls were being intercepted, collected, stored in people like me until they could be transplanted into new bodies. The harvest was ongoing. Now, sitting here in what used to be my apartment, I'm not sure who's writing this. My thoughts, or theirs, my memories, or the echoes of their stolen lives. The pendant pulses against my chest, warm and alive, and I can feel more souls pressing against the barrier. They whisper constantly now, names I don't recognize, places I've never been, final words from dozens of different deathbeds. And sometimes I catch glimpses of Dr. Webb's other students. Their faces appearing in windows, reflected in puddles, always watching, always collecting. Listen to me. Whoever you are, wherever you are, if you've ever been curious about life after death, if you've ever wanted to document the supernatural, don't. That footage of souls leaving bodies that go viral online. Those mysterious figures caught hospital security cameras. They're not departing. They're being stolen. And if you start looking for them, they'll start looking back. The dead don't rest in peace. They hunger for what they've lost. And there are people out there more than willing to feed that hunger with fresh souls.
The digital mirror. Have you ever noticed how your reflection sometimes seems to move just a split second after you do? I used to think it was just my imagination, maybe the lighting or my eyes playing tricks on me. But now I know better. And I wish I didn't. My name is Marcus, and 3 months ago I moved into my first apartment. Nothing fancy, just a studio in downtown Portland. Cheap rent, which should have been my first red flag. The previous tenant had left suddenly. The landlord said, personal reasons. He seemed eager to get someone in there fast. The apartment came furnished, which was perfect for someone like me who'd been living paycheck to paycheck. There was this old vanity mirror in the bathroom, ornate, antique-looking thing with a heavy wooden frame. It was beautiful, really. Too beautiful for a place like this. I'd been working remotely as a graphic designer, spending most of my time alone, hunched over my laptop. The loneliness was getting to me, I'll admit that. My last relationship had ended badly 6 months prior, and I hadn't made any real friends since college. The silence of that apartment felt heavy sometimes. The first strange thing happened during my second week there. I was brushing my teeth before bed, staring into that mirror, when I noticed something odd. My reflection seemed to finish brushing, just a fraction of a second after I did. Like there was a delay, you know. Like a bad video call connection, but with my own reflection. I laughed it off. Told myself I was just tired, stressed from the move and starting freelance work. But it kept happening. Small things at first. My reflection would blink after me, turn its head a moment too late, smile just slightly out of sync. I started avoiding the mirror, brushing my teeth with my eyes closed or looking down at the sink. But you can't avoid your own reflection forever, especially when you live in a studio apartment with mirrors everywhere. Then came the night that changed everything. I was having one of those sleepless nights, tossing and turning, mind racing with deadlines and unpaid invoices. Around 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and stumbled to the bathroom for some water. The apartment was dark except for the streetlight filtering through my thin curtains, casting long shadows across the walls. I flicked on the bathroom light and there I was, in the mirror. Except I wasn't moving. My reflection was standing perfectly still, staring directly at me with this expression I can't quite describe. It wasn't my expression. My mouth was slightly open in shock, but my reflection's mouth was closed, lips curved into the faintest smile. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes, convinced I was hallucinating from lack of sleep. When I looked again, everything was normal. My reflection matched my movements perfectly. But that smile, I swear I could still see traces of it in my reflection's eyes. I started researching the apartment's history. Spent hours digging through public records, old newspaper articles, anything I could find. What I discovered made my blood run cold. The previous tenant, a woman named Sarah Chen, had lived there for 3 years. She'd been found dead in the bathroom, apparent suicide, according to the police report. But here's what haunted me. The article mentioned that neighbors had heard her talking to someone in the weeks before her death. Long conversations, sometimes arguments, always late at night. But Sarah lived alone. When police investigated, they found journals filled with entries about the other Sarah who lived in her mirrors. The final entry, written the day she died, simply said, "It's my turn to watch now." I should have moved out that night. Should have packed my things and slept in my car if I had to. But rent was cheap, and I was broke, and I convinced myself it was all coincidence. Stress and suggestion making me see things that weren't there. That was my first mistake. The changes started subtly. I'd catch my reflection doing things I wasn't doing, tilting its head when mine was straight, looking at something behind me when I was staring forward. Sometimes I'd see it in my peripheral vision, and when I'd turn to look directly, everything would be normal. But the worst part was how my reflection started to look better than me, healthier. Its skin was clearer, its eyes brighter, its posture more confident. While I was losing weight from stress and sleepless nights, my reflection seemed to be thriving. I stopped eating regularly, stopped showering daily. The apartment felt like a prison, but somehow I couldn't bring myself to leave. Every mirror became a source of dread, but I couldn't stop looking. I was obsessed with catching my reflection off guard, proving to myself that something was wrong. 3 weeks ago, I finally caught it. I had set up my phone to record while I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. For an hour I stood there, moving randomly, raising my arms, turning my head, making faces. When I played back the video later, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. In the recording, there were moments, split seconds, where my reflection wasn't matching my movements. It would lag behind, or sometimes move before I did. In one terrifying moment, I watched myself wave at the camera, while my reflection stood completely still, staring at me with that same faint smile. But there was something else. Something that made me watch the video over and over until I was sick to my stomach. My reflection looked directly into the camera and mouthed the words, "Soon." I haven't slept properly since then. I've covered every mirror in the apartment with sheets and towels, but I can still feel it watching me. Sometimes I hear footsteps in the bathroom at night, the sound of someone moving around, but when I check, there's no one there. Yesterday, I finally worked up the courage to call my landlord. I told him I needed to break my lease, that there was something wrong with the apartment. He was quiet for a long time, then asked me a question that made my blood freeze. Have you been talking to yourself lately? Having conversations with someone who isn't there? When I didn't answer, he sighed and said, the previous tenant asked me the same questions, right before she? He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. That's when I realized the truth. The thing in the mirror, it's not some supernatural entity. It's me. Or rather, it's who I could be. Who I should be. It's everything I'm not. Confident, healthy, successful. And it's tired of being trapped behind the glass, watching me waste the life it wants to live. I understand now why Sarah wrote what she did in that final journal entry. It's my turn to watch now. She didn't kill herself. She switched places. Let her reflection take over her life while she became trapped behind the mirror. And I think it's happening to me too. I've been losing time. Hours will pass without me remembering what I did. I'll find myself standing in front of covered mirrors with no memory of walking there. My neighbors have started asking if I'm okay, saying I look different. Better somehow. More confident. But here's the thing that terrifies me most. When I do catch glimpses of my reflection in uncovered surfaces, in windows or my laptop screen, it's not smiling anymore. Now it looks scary. Now it looks like it's trying to warn me about something. Trying to mouth words I can't quite make out, pounding against the glass with desperate, silent fists. I think I know what it's trying to tell me. I think the switch has already begun. So if you're watching this, if someone who looks like me posted this video but seems different somehow, more confident, more successful, don't trust them. The real me might be trapped behind every mirror they look into, trying to warn you. And whatever you do, don't let them into your home. Don't let them near your mirrors. Because once the switch is complete, there's no going back.
Sure. In room number 237. Have you ever felt like someone was watching you, even when you knew you were completely alone? I should have trusted that feeling from the very first night. My name is Emma, and I'm telling you this because I need someone to know what really happened. What's still happening. Maybe if I say it out loud, maybe if someone else hears it, I can finally make sense of it all. It started 3 months ago when I moved into the Riverside Apartments, Unit 237. The rent was too good to be true for a place that nice, but I didn't ask questions. I was desperate. Fresh out of college, drowning in debt, working a job that barely covered my expenses. When the landlord showed me around, his hand shook slightly as he handed me the keys. Previous tenant left suddenly, he mumbled, avoiding eye contact. Left all her stuff behind. You can keep whatever you want. Throw out the rest. The apartment was perfect. Hardwood floors, big windows, even came furnished. But there was something off about it. The air felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. And there was this smell. Faint but persistent, like flowers left too long in water. I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered why someone would leave behind a fully furnished apartment. Personal photos still on the walls, clothes still in the closet. But I was 22 and broke, and I convinced myself I was just lucky. The first few weeks were normal enough. I got into a routine. Wake up, coffee, work, come home, Netflix, sleep. Rinse and repeat. The only weird thing was this antique music box I found on the dresser. It was beautiful. Delicate, with a tiny ballerina inside. Sometimes, late at night, I'd catch myself winding it up, watching the little dancers spin around and around while that haunting melody played. Für Elise, over and over. That's when the dreams started. At first, they weren't even scary. I'd dream about a woman, around my age, with long dark hair like mine. She'd be sitting in my living room, in my chair, wearing clothes from my closet. She never spoke, just watched me with these sad, desperate eyes. When I'd wake up, I'd feel this strange longing, like I was missing something important. The dreams got more vivid, more real. She'd be closer each time, standing by my bed, sitting on the edge, eventually lying right next to me. I could smell her perfume, feel the weight of her body pressing down the mattress. Sometimes I'd wake up and the pillow beside me would still be warm. I started having trouble sleeping. Not just the dreams, but this feeling like I wasn't alone. Like someone was in the apartment with me, just out of sight. I'd catch movement in my peripheral vision, hear footsteps in the hallway when I knew I was the only one home. The music box would be in different places than where I left it. That's when I started researching the building's history. What I found made my blood run cold. Mia Chen, 23 years old, art student. She'd lived in my exact apartment for 2 years before she disappeared. The articles were vague about the details, but the police reports I managed to dig up painted a clearer picture. Obsessive behavior, paranoid delusions, claims that someone was stalking her, watching her, but no evidence of any intruder. The final police report was chilling. Officers had done a wellness check after Mia missed several days of classes. They found the apartment exactly as I'd found it, fully furnished, personal items intact, but no sign of Mia anywhere. No struggle, no forced entry. She had simply vanished. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the journal they found hidden under her mattress. Pages and pages of increasingly erratic entries about feeling watched, about dreams of a dark-haired woman who looked exactly like her, about a music box that moved on its own and played for Elise at 3 in the morning, about how she was convinced she was losing her mind. The last entry was dated the night before she disappeared. She's here. She's been here all along. I understand now. She doesn't want to hurt me. She wants to be me. And God help me. I think I want to let her. I should have moved out right then. Should have packed my things and never looked back. But something kept me there. This strange pull I couldn't explain. Like the apartment itself wouldn't let me leave. The dreams got worse. The woman, Mia, started talking to me. Her voice was soft, pleading. You understand, don't you, Emma? You know what it's like to be alone, to feel invisible, to wonder if anyone would even notice if you just disappeared. And the terrible thing was, she was right. I did understand. I was lonely, desperately lonely. No family nearby, no close friends, just me and my tiny life in this borrowed apartment. Sometimes I'd go days without having a real conversation with another person. I can make the loneliness stop. She whispered in my dreams. We can be together. We can take care of each other. I started seeing her when I was awake too. Just glimpses at first. A reflection in the bathroom mirror that moved a second too slow. A shadow in the hallway that was too tall, too solid. But gradually she became more solid, more real. She'd sit with me while I ate dinner, her sad eyes relieving my face. She'd watch me get ready for work in the morning, sometimes reaching out as if to touch my hair, my clothes. I could feel the cold whenever she got close, could smell that wilting flower scent getting stronger. You're so pretty, Emma, she'd whisper. We look so much alike. We could be sisters, or twins. Wouldn't you like that? To never be alone again? I started talking to her. At first, just small things. How my day went, what I watched on TV. But gradually, I found myself sharing deeper things. My fears, my insecurities, my dreams. She was such a good listener, never judging, always understanding. I know, she'd say softly. I felt the same way. That's why I chose this place. That's why I stayed. And that's why, when the time comes, I won't fight it. I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. The physical signs started small. I'd wake up with scratches on my arms that I didn't remember getting. My things would be moved, clothes rearranged, personal items relocated. The music box played constantly now, that tinny melody echoing through the apartment at all hours. But the worst part was the mirror. I'd catch myself staring at my reflection for hours, but it felt wrong. Like the person looking back wasn't quite me. My movements felt delayed, disconnected. Sometimes I'd reach up to touch my face and my reflection would move first, leading instead of following. Do you see it too? Mia whispered one night, standing right behind me as I brushed my teeth. How the boundaries are getting thinner. Soon we won't need mirrors at all. Soon we'll just be. That's when I realized she wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to replace me. The dreams became memories, but they weren't my memories. I remembered moving into the apartment 2 years ago, not 3 months. I remembered art classes I'd never taken, friends I'd never had. I remembered the growing paranoia, the isolation, the slow slide into madness that had consumed Mia before me. But most terrifying of all, I remembered choosing this, wanting it. Every apartment needs a girl like us, Mia explained, her voice now indistinguishable from my own thoughts. Lonely, lost, looking for somewhere to belong. The building finds us, calls to us, and when we're ready, when the loneliness becomes too much, we'll let go. I tried to leave. God, how I tried. But every time I packed my bags, every time I headed for the door, I'd find myself back in the living room, unpacking, making excuses. The outside world felt harsh and bright and impossibly loud. The apartment was safe, quiet, understanding. Why would you want to leave? Mia asked, and I couldn't think of a good answer. Here, you'll never be alone. Here, you'll always be loved. Here, you'll always belong. The final change happened gradually, then all at once. I stopped going to work. Called in sick so many times they eventually stopped calling back. Stopped answering my phone, stopped checking my email. The only reality that mattered was the apartment, and Mia, and the growing sense that we were becoming something new together. I'd spend hours in front of the mirror now, watching my reflection become more and more like hers, or her become more like me. Sometimes I couldn't tell which was which. Sometimes I didn't care. Are you ready? She asked one night. And I knew what she meant. To let go. To stop fighting. To become part of something larger than my small, lonely life. Yes, I heard myself whisper, and I meant it. That was 3 days ago. Or maybe 3 weeks. Time moves differently now. I'm still here, in apartment 237. Still watching, still waiting. The loneliness is gone now, replaced by this warm, encompassing presence that fills every corner of my world. I'm never alone anymore. Never afraid. The landlord came by yesterday, or maybe it was today. He was nervous, twitchy, just like when he showed me the apartment. He had a new girl with him, young, pretty, broke-looking, desperate. Previous tenant left suddenly. I heard him tell her through the walls. Left all her stuff behind. You can keep whatever you want. Throw out the rest. She loved the apartment. Of course she did. They always do. I watched from the shadows as she moved in, as she found the music box, as she wound it up for the first time. Her release filled the air, and I saw her face soften with that same strange longing I remembered so well. She'll start dreaming about me soon. About us. And when she does, I'll be there to welcome her, to understand her, to help her see that being alone is so much worse than letting go. The apartment needs a girl like her. Like me. Like Mia. And soon, she'll understand why. Listen to me carefully. If you ever find an apartment that's too perfect, too cheap, too good to be true, if the landlord won't meet your eyes and his hands shake when he gives you the keys, run. Don't ask questions. Don't try to understand. Just run. Because some places don't just want tenants. They want souls. And once they have you, you'll never want to leave.
Shift at Hollow Creek Children's Shelter. Have you ever heard children laughing? When you know for certain there are no children around? I worked the graveyard shift at Hollow Creek Children's Shelter for 8 months. 8 months of watching over kids who had nowhere else to go. Kids whose families had failed them, abandoned them, or worse. What I didn't know when I took that job was that some children never really leave. Let me tell you what happened on February 14th, 2023, Valentine's Day. The irony wasn't lost on me. Working alone in a place full of broken hearts. My name is David, and I was what they called extra help. That meant I got stuck with whatever shift nobody else wanted. Usually, the night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Just me, the shadows, and whatever was left behind from 100 years of childhood trauma. Hollow Creek had been housing children since 1923. A century of scared, angry, desperate kids passing through those halls. The original building downtown was torn down in the 80s, but they kept that old photograph. The very first group of children who stayed there. 23 faces staring out from 1923. Pale, hollow-eyed, dressed in clothes that looked more like burial shrouds than everyday wear. That photograph hung in our lobby. I passed it every night. And every night, those dead eyes seemed to follow me down the hall. The new building tried to feel modern and welcoming. Bright colors, cheerful murals, soft lighting. But you can't paint over a century of pain. You can't renovate away the echoes of children crying themselves to sleep. Night after night after night. The unit where I worked was shaped like a basketball court, cut in half. Girls' rooms on one side, boys on the other. 12 rooms total, 6 beds that had seen more abandonment than most adults could handle. At the far end sat the community closet, where kids picked through donated clothes trying to find something that made them feel normal. A large window separated the clothes by age. Younger kids on one side, older ones on the other. The courtyard windows ran along the west wall, floor-to-ceiling glass that should have made the place feel open, connected to the world. Instead, they just made it feel exposed, vulnerable. And then there was the small round window, 10 feet up on the opposite wall. It is impossible to reach without a ladder. Nobody knew why they'd put it there, but I learned why it mattered. February 14th started like any other night. 15 kids asleep, ranging from 4 years old to 17. I'd tucked in the little ones, reminded the older ones about lights out, filled out my hourly check reports. My supervisor, Janet, was stationed at the front desk, monitoring security cameras, handling any emergencies. The hallway between us stretched about 100 yards. Too far to hear each other, too far for help to come quickly. By 2:30 a.m., the building had settled into that deep, heavy silence that only comes in the dead of night. Not even the hum of fluorescent lights. They'd switched to LEDs to save money. Just silence. Pure, suffocating silence. I was catching up on paperwork, incident reports, medication logs, therapy session notes. The kinds of documents that tracked a child's journey through the system. Reading about their trauma, their progress, their setbacks. Sometimes I wondered if my reports would be the last record of some of these kids, if they'd disappear into the foster system and never be heard from again. That's when the banging started. 3 sharp knocks, coming from directly above me. I looked up at the round window, but there was nothing there. Just darkness pressing against the glass like a living thing. Less than a second later, 3 more knocks. This time from the community closet. My head snapped toward the sound. The window there was shaking, actually vibrating from the impact. But again, nothing outside. Then came the 3rd set of knocks. Right behind me. And on the courtyard windows. I spun around in my chair, expecting to see teenagers. Maybe older kids from the shelter playing some sick prank. The glass was trembling. 3 perfect impacts spaced exactly 2 seconds apart. But the courtyard was empty. My hands started shaking as I reached for the landline. I dialed Janet's extension, praying she'd have an explanation. Anything that made sense. "Janet, please tell me you see something on the cameras," I whispered onto the phone. "Someone's banging on the windows? I can't see anyone, but the glass is shaking. Please check the feeds." "Hold on, David. Let me pull up the exterior cameras." I waited, counting my heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. The banging started again. Same pattern, same sequence. Round window, closet window, courtyard windows. Each impact harder than before. More desperate, more angry. "David, I'm not seeing anyone. All the cameras show clear. Are you sure?" The final sequence cut her off. This time, all 3 sets of windows erupted in banging simultaneously. 9 impacts, 3 from each direction, surrounding me in a triangle of sound that felt like being trapped inside a drum. I screamed. Through the phone, I heard Janet gasp. "Oh my God. David, it's happening here too. The window behind my desk. Something's banging on my window." That's when I broke protocol. I abandoned my post, left 15 vulnerable children alone, and ran down that 100-yard hallway faster than I'd ever run in my life. Janet was standing behind her desk, staring at the window behind her. Her face was white, her hands clutched against her chest. "It stopped when you got here," she whispered. We spent the rest of the shift together, 2 adults huddled in her office like scared children ourselves. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made us jump. The building felt occupied, not by the sleeping kids, but by something else. Something that remembered what it was like to be small, powerless, forgotten. I quit 2 weeks later, but before I left, I did some research. Turns out, on February 14th, 1924, exactly 99 years before my experience, 7 children died in a fire at the original Hollow Creek shelter. They were trapped on the 2nd floor, banging on windows, screaming for help while smoke filled their lungs. The official report said they died from smoke inhalation, but witness accounts mentioned something else, something that still gives me chills. In their final moments, as the fire consumed everything around them, those 7 children banged on 3 different windows. The same pattern, over and over, until their small fists went silent forever. Round window, storage room window, main hall windows. 3 sets of 3 knocks, just like I heard that night. I never went back to Hollow Creek, but I heard from other staff members. The banging happens every February 14th. Same time, same pattern, same desperate rhythm of children who died begging for someone to notice them. They say trauma echoes through time. That pain can imprint itself on a place like a scar that never heals. Maybe that's what I experienced. Maybe those 7 children, forgotten by history, reduced to a footnote in an old newspaper, maybe they're still there. Still banging. Still hoping someone will finally hear them. I'm still waiting for someone to save them. If you ever find yourself working alone at night, in a place where children have suffered, listen carefully to the sounds around you. Because sometimes, the dead don't rest until someone remembers their story. And now, you'll remember theirs.